Hey guys, it's Robin and I am back with another video. So I know I haven't made any videos in a little while, but I've been super busy. There's just a lot of going on. So I decided I'm going to come back today with this video on the courtroom testimony tips that you guys have been asking for. I've had so many people ask me in comments on my other crime scene videos, different tips about courtroom testimony, or saying that they may be scared. They think that they will be scared whenever they have to testify in court, but they want to be a crime scene investigator. So I decided to write out a list of different tips that I have, and I have my list right here. So I'm just going to go through my tips that I made for you guys, so that you know all the things that I think are very important that you need to keep in your head when you are testifying as a crime scene investigator, or just testifying in general. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first tip, and the most important, well, it's really not the most important, but it's a very major tip, is that you need to make sure that you are speaking loudly and you are speaking clearly so that everyone can hear you. You're going to have the prosecutors, the DA, the judge listening, all of the jurors listening, plus there will also be other people seated out in the audience listening as well. So you need to make sure that you are able to be heard, that people understand the words that are coming out of your mouth. So enunciate, speak loudly and speak clearly, and also speak confidently. Another important tip is to make sure that you have all of your case notes or report, whatever you have involved in the case. Make sure that you have those items present with you. Have multiple copies of case notes, multiple copies of reports, because if for some reason you were looking at your case notes, and if one of the attorneys or prosecutors want to ask you, hey, can I see your case notes, and they take them away from you, you want to make sure that you have another one on hand so that you can still be looking at your case notes for reference if you need to. Your case notes are, they're usually going to have your time stamps on there, times that you did certain things, all of the notes that you took while you were processing evidence, places that you went, who you encountered. Your case notes should include all of those things: badge numbers, descriptions of people or items that you saw, places where those items were, collected evidence, where they were collected from, what was done with them after they were collected, things like that. All of that's in your case notes. All of that should be in your report as well. Have copies on hand just in case you need to reference them, because honestly, you're going to go to multiple crime scenes in one day, multiple crime scenes in a week, so you're not going to remember everything. And plus, when you go to court, it's usually like months or like a year later, so you're not going to remember everything from that crime scene, unless it's just like a huge crime scene that you just can't forget, and that comes like every once in a blue moon. You're not going to remember every single detail of every crime scene. So yeah, have your case notes ready and have your report ready in multiple copies of each. Okay, another important detail that you all should remember if you have to testify in court as a crime scene investigator, this goes kind of hand in hand with the case notes and the report. Make sure that you know important times and dates. So the date of the offense, the time that you were dispatched to that offense, the time that you arrived, who was there when you got there, the time that you left, what you did with all of the stuff that you got. You need to know all like the dates and the times of things that that happened, so that they are able to pinpoint and say, hey, she came here on this day, this is what she saw at this time. Because if someone else came at a different time and they saw it a different way, then there should be basically a progression. There should be some type of progression, or if things were taken, if you did certain things, or if you moved certain things before other people got there, they're going to see a different scene than you. It's not going to be exactly the same. So that's the reason why it's very important to make sure you keep track of the times that you do stuff, or the times that you arrive, get there, all of that. Okay, as a crime scene investigator, you're going to be taking like tons and tons of photographs at each crime scene. So make sure that, another thing that you need to make sure is that you review the photos for that case prior to going to testify for that case. And I say that because you want to make sure that you can sort of put yourself back at the scene, and maybe, the photos will help you remember, like, oh yeah, I remember this. Oh yeah, I remember that. And, if there are any details in the photos that are important, you just want to brush up on those things. So reviewing the photos can help a lot with that. And also, if there is a suspect or a witness. So if there is a suspect or a witness that you had to take photos of, or a victim that you had to take photos of, or a deceased person, anything. And if they had like any distinguishing marks or tattoos on their body, any cuts, scrapes, injuries, anything like that, You want to know where those things were. If they had like any bullet wounds and gunshot wounds, you want to make sure you know, hey, they had a gunshot wound on their left arm, or they had a gunshot wound on their right chest, or something on the right side of their chest, or something like that, or they had one on their face. You don't want to say, oh, they had a gunshot wound to the back of their head when it was really in the front of their head. So make sure you review the photo so that you refresh your memory about the crime scene prior to getting there and going to testify. Okay, so another thing that you guys should keep in mind before testifying, or whenever you do testify in court, is to know what evidence that you collected from a crime scene, what you did with that evidence as far as processing, packaging, if you had to send it somewhere, like if you had to send it to another lab, or if you had to give it to a detective, or whatever you did with that evidence, you need to know exactly where you got it from, what color it was, how big it was, whatever, all the details of that evidence, where it went, who took it, who signed off on it, and make sure you also have a chain of custody for that evidence present, or you have it connected to your report. So you need to make sure that you know all the details of the evidence that you have. So because they're going to bring it up, they're most likely going to bring up the pieces of evidence, and you don't want to forget something or say that you put it somewhere that you usually didn't. So or that you didn't put it there. So make sure that you know exactly what you did with your evidence. Okay, sometimes when you are in court, if you are talking about evidence, or if they bring up evidence, sometimes they will show certain items of evidence. So if you're going to handle it, I always suggest making sure that you bring a pair of gloves. So in case that they hand you the evidence and they want and they want you to show it, then you are handling it the same way that you would if you were at a crime scene, or if you were packaging the crime scene, because at the end of the day, there may still be some type of biological evidence on there. There may still be some trace evidence on there. You don't want to contaminate it because it is evidence from a real crime scene, and no one wants to touch that. So make sure that you're handling it with gloves and also with care. Okay, so one thing I noticed was that in the comments on previous crime scene videos, a lot of people were saying that they are nervous speaking in front of large, in front of like a large amount of people, so they didn't think that they would be okay like testifying, or they thought they would be scared testifying or something. There was a couple comments sort of like that. So I have a couple suggestions in order to beat nervousness when you're on the stand. These are just the tips, the things that I do. It may or may not work for you, but here's my suggestions. So I get really, really nervous before I testify. And that's just because I also don't like speaking in a room full of people that I don't know. It's kind of weird. But I mean, after the first 5 minutes are the hardest for me. So pretty much the first 5 minutes usually entails you stating your name, what department you work for, spelling your name, saying the department you work for, how long you've been working there, what's your position title, what does that title entail, and everything else. And when you're saying those things, all eyes are on you, like completely. When you get further into your testimony and they start showing the pictures and everything else, eyes aren't just focused straight on you. They're looking back and forth at other people. They're looking at your evidence, or they're looking at the pictures on the screen, or they're looking at the person asking the question. So it's not like eyes just set on you, straight. So what I always do is, I have an Apple Watch. I don't have it on right now, but I have my Apple Watch always on this arm. So what I do before I go into testify, I always start my Apple Watch on the breathe. I'm sure if you guys have an Apple Watch, you know what I'm talking about. They have like a little breathe app, and it has like a little flower that expands and contracts, and you basically you control your breathing. It's like controlled breathing. So I do controlled breathing exercises with the help of my breathe app, and that helps me out a lot. So I usually set it for 5 minutes because I think that's the longest that I can do it for on my Apple Watch. So I set it for 5 minutes so I can feel it, and it's reminding me as I'm speaking to just to breathe. So I'm usually down. I'm usually sitting down, and I have a nervous habit of tapping my fingers. So instead of doing that, up where people can see it on top of the desk, I just tap my fingers on my knee. I'm doing it right now. You guys can't see. You can't tell that I'm doing it, but I'm doing it because I'm talking about it. So, So I have my breathe app on. I do my nervous tap on my knee, but whatever you do, say if you want to tap your foot, or if you move your leg, or shake your leg, or you shake your hand, or whatever, just do it under the table so that no one can see that you're doing it, and don't make big, huge movements. Just whatever calms you down. If that's something that calms you down, like doing a repeated movement, just do it lightly and do it under the table, and do it so that no one can hear you. Don't make a lot of noise doing it. So yeah, those are my tips as far as, staying calm while you're testifying. Okay, so another suggestion I have is to make sure that you're listening carefully to the prosecutors and the DAs when they're asking the questions. Sometimes the questions can kind of be like a little confusing. You may have to ask them like, hey, can you repeat that question? Or I'm sorry, can you please repeat that? Or let them know, hey, I didn't hear you. Can you please repeat that? I didn't hear you. So make sure that when you are asking these questions, you make it clear that you didn't understand. If you don't understand the question, do not answer it. Ask for them to repeat it. And they'll gladly repeat it, or they'll say it in a different way that makes a little bit more sense. So yeah, that's my suggestion. So something you should keep in mind while you're processing crime scenes is that you are going to probably have to testify to it later. So one thing that I always do when I'm processing crime scenes is I make sure that what I do at one scene is the same type of steps that I would do at another scene if it was the same case. Like if I go there, I'm going to talk to the officers first. I'm going to get their badge numbers. I'm going to take down notes. If I have to then I'm going to do a walkthrough with them. Then I'm going to go get my camera. I'm going to set up my camera. I'm going to start taking pictures. Then comes the collection of evidence and so on and so forth. But I make sure that I do steps in the same order each time so that when I get to court, if they ask me, hey, when did you do this? I can say, I did this before I did this. Or I did this after I did this. So they know, I know the steps that I did in the order that I did certain things. There was one time where I was in court and I had, they were showing pictures, they were showing photographs of a suspect who, he was there, he was actually the defendant. So I took photographs of him the day of the crime, the day that the crime was committed or the day that they caught him or whatever. I took pictures of him at the police headquarters, and I took overall photos of him, photos of his injuries or whatever, and the clothing items that he had on, and the evidence associated with him that the detectives had collected, took all of those pictures. So I was asked when I was in court, when I was testifying, I was asked about the photos that I took, and I was able to explain to them the order that I take the photos, because I always take the photo, if I'm taking pictures of a suspect, I'm always going to take them in the same way, the exact same time. It's a routine for me. Take an overall photo first, come up, take a mid photo from their head down to the torso. Then I take a close-up photo of their face. Then I go back, take pictures of their hands out like this. Well, not like this, but their hands are down lower. So we can see if there's anything on their hands. Then I have them flip their hands, see if there's anything on their palms. Then I get close-ups of their hands and their palms. And then that's when I start doing the 360 photos, where I just have them turn once, turn again, face back to me. I get the pants, I get the shoes, back of the pants, back of the shoes, soles of the shoes, things like that. So that was my routine, and I did that with every single person that I photographed, every single time. So when I was asked in court one day, hey, do you remember, like, at what point did you take this photo of the hands? Because when they're showing your photos, they're not usually showing them in order. They're showing them so that they can prove a point for their side. You may take 100 photos and they show 3 of them. You may take 400 photos and they show 200 of them. So it really just depends, and that's why you just need to keep in mind, this is how I do it every single time, so that when you're on the stand, you don't get tripped up and say that you did something before you did something else, when that could kind of mess you up in the long run. If that's not really how you did it, then it makes it seem as if you don't remember the steps that you took, or you don't do it the same way each time. So if you don't do it the same way each time, that could be a problem, because then it's like, well, why'd you do it this way with this person or with this case when you don't usually do it that way? So do things the same way all of the time when you're processing crime scenes. That's pretty much my point. Okay, so my very last tip for if you want to testify, or if you're going to testify in court in the future as a crime scene investigator, or if you want to become a crime scene investigator, my very last tip for you would be this. I'm going to read it straight from my iPad because it's a little long. So, if there's something that you did not do at the crime scene, because it wasn't necessary, then be sure to state that everything you did was what was necessary at the time, based on the information that you knew about the crime scene. So, the reason I stated this is because sometimes when you are at a crime scene, certain things may not be necessary to do. And you can usually, if you have any questions about that, or questions about what should and should not be done, you should always speak to your supervisor about it, or your manager, especially if they are at the crime scene with you. You can talk to them about it, like, hey, do you think we should do this, or do you think we need to do that? So if your supervisor tells you that you don't need to do something, or if the detective on the scene says that they don't want something collected, or they don't need this, or they don't need that, done, then as the crime scene investigator, you make a note of that on your field notes, and you say such and such item not collected, or such and such not processed because, or per this person, per that person. Just make sure you have it on your field notes why certain things weren't done if it didn't need to be done. But also, you want to always cover your bases. So if there's something that you absolutely think that you need to do, or there's something that 100% needs to be done for that crime scene, then definitely do it. But if there are things that you're like, is this going to really be necessary, and you're really thinking like, I don't think this is necessary, then just talk over with someone like a supervisor or something and get their opinion. And if they, like I said, if they say no, you don't need to do it, then hey, you're going to be off of what your supervisor said. My other suggestion is also that you can never have too much. So, I mean, you can go to a crime scene, you can collect 100 pieces of evidence. Are all those 100 pieces of evidence going to be used, or looked at as far as putting someone in jail or getting someone out of jail, making someone be innocent or guilty? No, like you have to condense your evidence down, like decide what is important at the scene. What is the most important? What can we get the most, use of, like most use of DNA or most use of trace evidence or whatever the case may be, like from which particular items. Those are the items that you go for. You're not going to go to a house and collect every single thing inside the house. You're not going to open up the cabinets and take out all of the pots and pans and all of the cups and plates. Like, no, there are certain things that you're not going to do, and that's because they weren't necessary to do. So what you do is you like I said, make note of it. And then also, when you are testifying, you make sure that you say that you did everything that was necessary at the time when you were given the information by the at the crime scene. When you first arrive at the crime scene, you speak to officers, and they're going to brief you on everything that they've seen so far, where they have seen certain items at, what they think has transpired, or what they were told has transpired. There may be a detective there already. There may not be. If the detective is there, then they're going to tell you certain things, and they're going to tell you what they want done. They may tell you what they want done. Some detectives do, some detectives don't. So if they tell you what they want done, you go ahead, you do those things. So that's how you will move forward in that situation. But like I said, you're not going to collect a zillion things just from one location. You're going to take the most important items of evidence, the most useful items of evidence. So whatever you do not take, you have to, why did you not take it? Because if it was important, you should have took it. If it's not important, then you can make note of that. So yep, those are all of my tips for testifying in court as a crime scene investigator. For all of you who want to testify in the future, or who want to be a crime scene investigator in the future, obviously you're going to have to eventually testify. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope that these tips work for you. Save this to like your watch later. If you are in the process of becoming a crime scene investigator or whatever the case may be, save this in your watch later so that you can reference this before your first time testifying, because I hope I gave you guys a lot of good information. I think I gave you guys a lot of good information, because if someone would have gave me all of that information, I would have been like the best testifier the very first time. But the first time I was really, really nervous. After that, it was like, okay, like it was fine, because I was used to the same. You get used to the prosecutors and the defense attorneys and the judges or whatever, because you see them so much, especially when you're doing more and more like murders and stuff like what I did. Like, you start seeing a lot of the same ones over and over. You get to know them, they get to know you, but it's more so, it's not the attorneys and the prosecutors and the judge and the jurors that make you nervous sometimes. Well, no, the jurors make me nervous, and the people that sit out there who are watching, they make me nervous. But everyone that you work with, like the DA and the prosecutors and the judge, like those, that's fine. Like, everyone else is like, ugh, don't want to talk in front of all these people, but hey, you got to. It's a part of the job. So yeah, I hope that these tips helped you guys. And if you have any other questions, just leave them below. I will have more crime scene videos coming soon. There's just a lot on the plate right now, guys. I'm sorry, my hair is looking a mess. It's just all over the place right now. So anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Give this video a thumbs up, and make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you have not already subscribed, so that you stay updated with all my videos. Hit the bell button so that you guys stay updated, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye.